Hello then, welcome to another episode on FOBB's podcast. I trust you're doing great wherever you're listening from. I sure am, and it's been an exciting one for us here in Nigeria, to say the least. We recently ushered in a new government, and we all know that change sometimes comes with both sweetness and itches, but all the same, God is good. So I want to talk to you on this episode about how to remain sane in this toxic clime, and I've titled it "Shut Them Out." Shut them out. All right. So we live in a world of constant turmoil and chaos, engineered by humanity's natural penchant for selfish gratifications, and this is accompanied by a lot of attitudes that lead to relational toxicities. And today we find ourselves in toxic situations, toxic circumstances. We find toxicity and toxic people everywhere and in every system. We find them in the family, we find them in our places of worship, we find them in our workplaces, in our schools, in our government, and lots more. But basically, everywhere we turn to, there is something or someone toxic. So it is worthy of note to mention that toxic situations don't magically occur. However, toxic situations are created by toxic people. But how are toxic people made? Have you thought about it? What makes toxic people? So I found out that toxicities are generated through a mental, emotional, and subconscious mind programming resulting from negative internal dialogues sponsored by negative information that seeps through our eye and ear gates. That looks like a mouthful, but as I go on, I'm going to break it down a little bit. So little wonder why the Bible says to guard our hearts with all diligence, because thereof flows the issues of life. And that is to say that you become the image of yourself that is plastered on your mind. That is, the reason the Bible also says that as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. Unfortunately, we have a lot of garbage floating around everywhere today. There are billions and trillions in the form of information, and there really isn't much we can do about it, or its generation and its production. However, the power we do have is how we choose to respond to them. And note that I said respond and not react. So reactions can be haphazard and catastrophic in impact, because when not controlled, it is very unstable. Whereas when it comes to responses are choices made from a place of thinking, consideration, and meditation. So toxicities are like computer viruses. They can easily spread over a network or interconnection of devices, in this case people, and they are usually very harmful. And the best way to stop or remove or contain or prevent them is by creating a strong firewall, which is a protection or a protective barrier against such intrusion or attack. That is, we also basically, like, we also take vaccines against viruses, like many people did during the COVID-19 pandemic. And that is also why it is important to be cautious about the things we listen to, about the things we read, about the things we watch, as a means of prevention, because these things have a way of conditioning our minds negatively or positively. For instance, you wonder why every time you watch or read the news, you feel angry, agitated, anxious, and sometimes frightened, because our news and media outlets most times usually just report everything that is going wrong, and almost nothing positive is mentioned in most cases. and it just looks like the world is crumbling all around, because that is what all of the news channels are reporting. Lately, we're also seeing a whole lot of weird and unimaginable stuff and ideologies and social constructs, flying around, or making rounds across social media, and this is putting a lot of stress on a lot of people mentally and emotionally. You can also consider, people who work in toxic environments, as well as people who have toxic bosses or co-workers, people who are undervalued at work, people who are less appreciated. Rather, all they hear, week long, month long, and all year long are criticisms about what they did wrong, nothing about what they ever do right. They're not appreciated for their efforts or input in the business or in the company. And there are also people who are just always bitter. You just find them, they're bitter about everything. Nothing ever excites them, nothing gives them joy. They're just bitter about people, about situations, about systems, about the government. They're just bitter people. And there really could be a lot of things that has resulted into them being the way they are, but the problem is they project their bitterness onto every other person around them, and when care is not taken, when you are around such people, you tend to also be like them, essentially. There are also people who always play victim. They're always playing the victim card, blaming everything that happens to them on other people. You could also talk about people who also have toxic parents or family members. Some even are abusive and manipulative, and they have a way of projecting their negativities on their children or family members, thereby widening the network of toxicity in our society. There are also pessimists. These people don't see anything good in things or people. They never see anything good. Nothing ever looks to them like it's going to work. Nothing ever looks to them like it's going to stand the test of time. Nothing ever looks positive to them. They're always seeing things that can't work, things that are not good, things that can't stand, things that don't make sense. They are just pessimists, and they are like that. And when you stay around people like that for too long, you become like them. I remember a quote by somebody, I can't remember. It says, when you stay around 5 poor people, you become the 6th poor person. And when you stay around 5 rich people, you become the 6th rich person. Why? Because you're surrounded by their kind of ideology, their mentality, their conversation, their pattern of thinking, their motivations, and things like that. And one way or the other, it rubs on you. So you're what you listen to, you're what you see, you're what you communicate or fellowship with. It's essentially. I remember reading in Keith Arrell's Attitude is Everything about a father who always criticizes his daughter. Our moves, our choices, our goals, our ambition, our choice of friends, our relationship, everything she does is not just good enough for a father. And this is something that she can't change. She didn't choose her dad. And this brings me back to the topic of this episode, that is to survive and to remain sane in this toxic clime. You have to shut them out. That is, shut out all the toxicities. You must create your own safe zone, your safe space, your own firewall that is impenetrable and impervious to toxic agents. And how do you do this? These things look like things that are just a lot of times it sounds cliche, and it just looks like we're all talking, but if we really just think deeply about it, we would see that there are certain principles and things that we can put in motion and put to work, but that can actually help us live through this and maintain positive attitude, because the end goal to all of this is about maintaining a positive attitude, even in the face or in spite of all of these things that are happening around us, so we don't become like what we're saying, what we're listening to, what we're reading, what we're hearing, but then we become a beacon of hope to other people that are around us. So how do we remain sane and in this toxic clime? How can we really shut out the toxicities? And the first thing I wrote down in my note is that you should pay closer attention to what you listen to, what you read or watch. You do not allow your mind to become a dumping ground for garbage from the media, from people. I just remembered some time back at my work, at my job, a job I was working at some times ago, and I remembered that there were certain people who, because we're co-workers, we get to talk, we get to share, and all of that. And after a while, I start to realize that they had a way of projecting their biases, their sentiments, their negativities about the workplace onto me. And being the kind of person that I am, I'm usually there, always listening and all of that. And I started to see that the more they talked about things that were not working, things that were not going well, and all of those things, it started to affect my productivity. It started to affect how well I was going about delivering, at my job. And after a couple of months or some months thereabout, I came to my senses and I was like, this is exactly what is affecting me. Because at that point, I started to think about exactly why am I like this? Why am I? At some point, I was just angry. At some point, I was, disinterested or uninterested in a lot of things. I was losing motivation so speedily, and it was affecting the way I was going. In fact, I just knew that I was not as productive as I ought to be. And I started to review the things that have happened in, the previous months. And I started to identify that it was points where I had certain conversations that those things were projected in my subconscious, and it started to affect the way I went about delivering all my responsibilities and tasks. And I had to, with wisdom, begin to dissociate myself from those conversations. And sometimes when those people, like, you can't just avoid those things. Sometimes you don't have power over it. You're in the same space, you're seeing them every day, you're communicating with them every day. But one thing I did do was my response to those conversations became different. I didn't allow it to sink through. I didn't allow it to get through to me. And then I didn't allow myself to think too much about it, consider it, meditate on it to a point where it begins to get into my subconscious and form a mindset. So I expunge it immediately. I purge it out immediately when they come, and I just find a way to cut the conversations short. And I start to see improvement in my work and in my delivery, going forward. So it is important to begin to monitor and watch what you listen to, what you read, what you hear, the kind of information you take in. So you must create your own mind sieve. I call it a mind sieve. Something that helps you to process and sort through the information that comes to you. Picking out what is good and deleting the bad stuff. Like some of my colleagues that talks about, these guys necessarily weren't bad people. They were just expressing their displeasure. To them, it was just expressing their displeasure in things that were not working and all of that. But it had negative impact on me. And most likely must have had a negative impact on other people, they were talking to. And I believe that at some point, they themselves started to see how that those things were affecting them. And then they began to make adjustments, because after a while, I wasn't seeing such conversation and all of that, So it is important to pay attention to these things. Also, know that you can't keep everyone so close. No matter how much you love them or how much they love you, especially when they have, attitudes that are harmful to your mental well-being, and you have you've tried to help them to no avail. So you must understand that you can't help everybody. You can't keep everybody too close when it is going to affect your mental well-being or state of mind. Also, this is quite important, and that is the third step. You have to edify yourself and renew your mind. And what do I mean by that? I mean that you should consume a lot of positive, motivational, and inspirational contents and media. You have a lot of inspirational and motivational tapes, books, documentaries. Now, if you have YouTube, you necessarily don't even have to go far. You have Netflix, you have a lot of streaming platforms. Why there are garbage on all of those platforms as well? They're the good stuff that you necessarily don't have to pay too much of a premium for. All you need is your internet connection, and you can easily access those things. You have a lot of books online as well that you might necessarily not have to buy, or even if you have to buy just a couple of bucks, and you're going to get those books, and it's going to do you a lot of good because it's an investment in your well-being, in your personal well-being, in your mental well-being. So you need to edify yourself. And of course, you have the Bible too. I mean, the Bible is the greatest spiritual, inspirational, and motivational bestseller of all time. You have the Bible. A lot of positive contents out there, a lot of positive affirmations, a lot of positive creative work that has been done in time past. A lot of it has been based on the Bible as well. So you might want to hold more dearly to your Bible this time around. There's a lot of encouraging words in the Bible. There are a lot of instructional words in the Bible. There are a lot of words in the Bible, regardless as the word of God, that can help you, that can keep you rooted and help you walk more sanely on the path of righteousness, as it were, on the path of purpose in this time, without necessarily giving in to the pressures of the toxicities of the society that we find ourselves in. You should also curate a list of positive motivational affirmations rather, for yourselves. Something that basically becomes your creed, because your mouth gate is equally as powerful, and you are what you say. The thing that we don't realize most times is when we speak, we are the first persons to hear what we say, and whatever we say and our subconscious mind hears, it creates a stirring on the inside of us, because there's a deposit of whatever we say, and that stirs something up on the inside of us, and it can be both positive or negative. The scripture says that death and life lie on the on the tongue, so to speak. So the power of death and life is on the tongue, and so it's important to choose what you say correctly. And so to help yourself, you just create a list of affirmations, things that can help you get through each and every day and each and every phase of your life. And those things are really, really important. And simply waking up and saying, I'm blessed, I am loved, I am a winner, I'm courageous, I can do all things. There's that part in scripture that says I can do all things through Christ that strengthens me. Another part in Romans says that we're more than conqueror through Christ who died for us and who gave himself for us, and all of that. There's just a whole lot of things that you can say to yourself, but sometimes they look like what good will they do? But then it's a programming. It begins to program your mind in such a way that empowers you to be able to stay afloat even in the voracious and I don't know what word to use then, the voracious tidal wave of toxicity around you. So it programs your mind to stay positive. So it's important to have a list of affirmations, things you say to yourself on a daily basis. You can have those things written on sticky notes or on certain paper pieces that you can stick around in your space, in your personal space, in your office desk, in your closet, in your bathroom, somewhere where you can always see them. You can have them printed out and framed, something that you read to yourself from time to time, and it gets you in the right mental space. All right. One other thing that I believe is also very vital if you want to stay sane and shut out all of the toxicities is to have an attitude of gratitude. That is being thankful in all situations and for every opportunity you have to do life on a daily basis. It's important. Bible says in all things give thanks. Bible says in all things give thanks. So when you just see every day as an opportunity to be better, to make a difference, to live life to the fullest, and you're thankful for every opportunity, even the things that are good and things that are not good, you have something to just give thanks for, because you're living and you believe that each and every moment can be better than the previous one. It makes a whole lot of sense, and it makes a whole lot of difference in your life. Also, know that you can't control every situation, especially what people do to you or how they feel about you or what they say to you. But however, you can choose how you respond to them in such situations. I think I mentioned that earlier in the starting of this episode, that it all boils down to how we respond to things. Reactions can be catastrophic, but when you respond to things in a positive way, because it's a choice you make, you choose to respond either in the positive or the negative way. But most times when we react from a place of emotion, and that can be totally involuntary, because we allow what we feel, we allow feelings to take over most times when we react. But when we respond, we use our minds. That is where our brain takes over, right? So it's important to choose how you respond in such situations. Let your response be out of love and understanding, because most times it's also important to know that many of the people that we have who are toxic in our society, many of them really don't know that they are toxic. Some know that they are toxic, but they can't just help themselves, and they also find themselves that way because they've been programmed that way, and probably they didn't have help when at the formative stage of such kind of attitude. And if they have had the help that you probably are having now, they most likely won't turn out the way they are. And so the best way to deal with them is to deal with them in love and understanding, and by doing such, you can help to reorder their minds to a positive space, so to speak, because two wrongs don't make a right. You can't respond to negative with negative. You only have more negatives, so to speak. So when you react negatively to something negative, it doesn't make a positive outcome. It doesn't give a positive outcome. It only becomes worse. So it's important that we respond from a place of love and understanding. The people who are married to people who are just pessimistic. I was reading in a book sometimes back how that this man had a wife who really just doesn't believe in whatever he wants to do. She has a way of just talking down on every of his moves, career moves, and all of that, business moves and all of that. And it wasn't long before he quite found out that it was not her fault. It all started from the point where, as she was growing up, she has a dad who usually failed at all of his moves, and they really didn't have it going fine. Herself, her sisters, and a mother, they really didn't have it going fine, because everything the father promised them really didn't come true. So it was like a repeated cycle of failure. And so she was already at a point where she really doesn't owe too much in her esteem. Whatever anybody says, I'm going to do this for you, I'm going to be able to do this, I'm going to be able to do that, she has come to a point where she just believes everything just comes to a point of disappointment. And so she brought that into her marriage, and that began to affect a relationship with her husband. No matter how much the man tries to make her see the realities of whatever he wants to do, she just doesn't see it, and she just she's more of like, just enjoy where you are and just keep things stable, and she doesn't want to take any risk and all of that, because she doesn't believe anything good is going to come out of it. It was just like Nathaniel in the Bible, and when they were telling him about Jesus, and he was like, can anything good come out of Nazareth? And and sincerely, in all honesty, they're just being honest about what they believe, but then it's the wrong kind of belief system, it's the wrong kind of mindset. And so when you're dealing with such kind of person, you have to deal with them in understanding, understanding where they're coming from and helping them see through all of that negativity into possibility. So you must be somebody who's patient as well, who can persevere. And although you must be careful that you don't lose yourself in that kind of situation, especially when it's very adverse to your mental well-being and to your progress as a person and to the fulfillment of your purpose. All right, so also you must develop an attitude that sees opportunities in problems. You must develop an attitude that sees beauty in ashes, that sees the order in chaos. Like the Bible says, that when they say there is a casting down, what you will say or what you see is a lifting up. The Bible is just complete with all of this, and that's what I was saying. You might want to you should take the Bible more seriously in times like this, right? Because it's just so filled with a lot of words, encouragement, and principles that can help us get through times and seasons of our lives like this. And there's also one more thing, or probably a couple of more things that I also like to say. And one other thing like that is, and I think it's one of the most important things when it comes to dealing with toxicities in our environment, is that you should work at making a difference in someone's life. I've come to find out that when you become a blessing to someone, you become someone's beacon of hope, and work at making a difference in people's lives, extending the love of God and the genuineness of humanity to them and to people, basically. We invariably shorten the circuit and cycle of toxicity in our world. So, and that is where the containing firewall comes in. So, and that is essentially love. Love is that firewall, that contains toxicity and chokes it out. So when we spread positivity and love in our society and make a difference in people's lives, we invariably shorten the circuit and cycle of toxicity in our world. So one genuine act of love, one genuine act of kindness can make one less toxic person. So you need to look inward, find what you're passionate about, find a problem worth solving, and start making a difference in someone's life. And that is very important. And lastly, if you've found yourself to have been infected and affected by the toxicity around you, and you genuinely acknowledge it, because that's important. It's important to genuinely acknowledge that you're toxic or you have toxic traits or behaviors, things that you do that hurt other people around you, because that's the main purpose or goal of toxicity. It doesn't hurt you alone, it hurts everyone around you. It hurts the love around you, it hurts the people around you. So if you found out that you have toxic behaviors, toxic traits, toxic attitudes, and you acknowledge it and you want to change, you want to recover and be better, you will need to start to take out the trash. It's one of the things I read in that same book by Keith Arrow, taking the trash out. And that's, cleansing your heart, cleansing your mind, and getting rid of all of those negative configurations that, is harmful to you and to the people around you. And, you need to decisively, begin a structured and meticulous process of detoxification, and that helps to clear the pathway of your subconscious mind of all of those things, all of those negative programming, and all of the steps that I have earlier highlighted are equally vital to taking the trash out. Being thankful for the opportunity you have, loving people genuinely and making a difference in the lives of people, knowing fully well that you cannot help everybody and can't keep everybody close, as well as investing time in renewing your mind and edifying yourself by listening, reading, and watching positive content, inspirational and motivational and spiritual content. A whole lot of those things go a long way, in helping you take the trash out and focusing your mind on the right things. So I've come to the end of this episode, and I hope that you've learned something and you've been blessed by this. And I really do hope that as we take decisive action to shut out the toxicities and keep our minds sane and take the trash out of our minds of all of the toxic deficit and configurations that have entered into our subconscious minds, would invariably make the world a better place. So till I come your way again on another episode, keep taking the trash out and keep shutting out the toxicity and keep making the world a better place. Bye bye.